Hello, good evening, and welcome to Joy News Prime live from our studio here in Kojo Mlemle. Coming up in this bulletin, harrowing tales of how people who were picked up from Ashaiman and taken to some military installations were subjected to further beatings at these installations.
He just asked me to go closer, but then the water was on the ground. So when I was there, before I could realize, about three of his team came around. They started slapping me, and then they asked me to roll on the ground.
Now, MP for Pong Katamanso alleges that after the military men invaded Ashaiman, they also went to his constituency and forced some people to consume cow dung. Now, also in this bulletin, NDC MPs backed party's directive asking them to suspend campaigning in their constituencies and stay back in parliament to defend the democracy of the country. Now, also in this bulletin, we'll be speaking to some family members of the slain soldier in Ashaiman. Now, it is a complete human rights abuse and a complete usurpation of responsibility on the behalf of the Ghana Armed Forces. Those are the observation of the Amnesty International as they talk about the abuse meted out to the resident of Ashaiman Tuesday when, in the wake of the killing of a soldier, Sheriff Imoro. Now, according to Amnesty International, violence is never the solution to finding the killers of the soldier. Now, we'll be hearing from them shortly, but first, mother of Sheriff Imoro, Sakinatu Efiachra, says the death of a son has shattered the dream of him becoming the breadwinner of the family. Now, the 21-year-old soldier was murdered by some unknown persons in Ashaiman on Saturday, less than a year since joining the Ghana Armed Forces. Now, he was laid to rest at Burma camp to Thursday afternoon. Joy News' James Aveji was there and has come through with this.
Tears, wailing, and grief composed the atmosphere as friends and families gathered here at the 37 Military Mosque to observe the final funeral rite of the slain soldier, Sheriff Imoro. The 21-year-old Imoro graduated from the army less than 2 years ago. He was gruesomely murdered in Ashaiman on Saturday by some unknown persons. Today, he goes home in accordance to Islamic customs. After the funeral service, which lasted for about 20 minutes, Imoro's body was transported to the Burma camp military cemetery for burial. Imoro's uncle, Ahmed Abdul, narrated how the family received the death of their beloved son.
We had a call. The mother had a call from the camp, Burma camp, that they invited her to come, and they asked her if she's coming, she should come with an elderly person. Then she said, "Oh, as the son committed some sin," and they said no. So later they called back and asked her to remain. They will come by themselves. So it was there around 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Then she decided to call them again, and they said they have not set off. When they set off, they will let her know. So people were holding mobile phone, so it was on social media. One of his brothers came with the phone and then was about to tell her what happened. Then she snatched the phone from the brother before she saw that the son was in the blood, cold blood. So there she called back, and then the military respond that they are coming, but she should come down. The child is not dead. So we were there about an hour before they came. When they came and narrated all their story to us. Then one my brother called Ibrahim. He asked them, so our son died? Then he said, yes, he's dead. Then they asked him, where is the body? Then he said, the body is at the 37 box. That's how we got to know.
His mother said the death of her son, Imoro, has dashed her hope of a better future for her family.
Sheriff Ayobuafua Obuame. Sheriff ya dear mame pa. Blow Sheriff in your Jumano. Of our phone frame say, Ma. Obilonyina to a trap, my near Juma, maybe Miniano. nso mama sheriff an hwe onua no na maji sheriff ne kra free ensem to ma ha me ha de ma ha me pa.
Among these mourners are Imoro's schoolmates who described him as a calm person and diligent with everything he did.
He was very calm. The only thing he liked was food. He was always present to dining. He was always in class, punctual, gentle. There was no fault. He had no problems. Nothing. He was a good guy. Yes. The night before he was killed, I think 3 days, he called he will be joining us in Akosomo for the Independence Day set match. So he used to play in my band since we were playing in the same band. Yes, the school band. We also played the Methodist Brigade band in Akosombo. Yes, so he used to join us always, set match, everything. Every program we go, he joins us. He's a very good trumpeter. Yes, he's a very good lead trumpeter. He loved playing trumpet. He ate trumpet. He slept trumpet. Everything he did was trumpet.
As Imoro is laid to rest, the search is still on for the persons who murdered him in cold blood. As to whether he, Sheriff Imoro, will get justice, only time will tell. James Kwesi Aveji's report read to you.
Now, it is also imagined that those who were picked up from Ashaiman into military custody suffered a lot of beatings as well. We're hearing from some of the over 150 people who were taken by the military and subsequently released. Now, they say they were subjected to further beatings while in custody at the military. Now, Maxwell Agbagba was back in the community and has been interacting with some of the victims.
You have marks on your body?
Yeah, I do have marks on.
Let me see that. Whoa. Wait, what caused this? What did they use to beat you?
Any weapon they having on their hands. Others were using rope.
Oh, no. He still have some bruises behind him, but we can't show that on TV.
They were using...
These are assault marks behind you?
Yes, sir.
What kind of weapons?
Others were using neem tree branches and cables, PVC pipes, and all types of things that they are holding.
So when were you released? Were you released on the same day?
Yeah, I was released on the same day around 11 p.m. as my colleague friend said it.
So you were also only in boxer shorts?
Yes.
No singlet or anything?
No dress.
And they dropped you at what?
A Sherman runabout.
This is the exact spot where the 21-year-old Sheriff Imoro fell. Residents here tell me that they discovered the body here early in the morning. We're told that he had run from a distance of about 300 meters after he was stabbed, but couldn't continue with his journey and then fell right here. And this is the point where the community people discovered the body. I've been speaking to some of the residents, and one of the people I've been speaking to is Beatrice Kpochu. Beatrice Kpochu's husband was forcibly taken away by the military after he stepped out to attend to a call of nature.
Tuesday night, no
On Tuesday, when the military was conducting the swoop, he had no idea what was happening. They arrested him on his way to a public toilet in the neighborhood. It has been 3 days now, and I have not heard anything from him. Our child is unwell. He's the breadwinner of the family. He takes care of us financially. It has been difficult getting food to eat. 3 days, I have not been able to send our child to the hospital. I am begging government to intervene for him to be released. My husband knows nothing about what happened.
David Kemi is a former teacher. He has a deep cut on his head, and then he also has some assault marks at his back. He says the soldiers who meted out those beatings to them must be made to face the full rigors of the law.
Somewhere 4 o'clock, I opened my gate. When I opened the gate, I saw the ammo car under the shade of the tree, just at the back of the shade of the tree. and one commando here, standing here, and he used the gun on me. So asked me to come. So I thought he needed an information. But then I was my boxer. I didn't know anything. So when I came, he just asked me to go closer. But then the water was on the ground. So when I was there, before I could realize, about 3 of his team came around. They started slapping me, and then they asked me to roll on the ground. Head, but this cut is from the belt. The belt that the man lose the belt and they hit it, and I was trying to parade it, and I had a cut.
It's belt. Goswe Kumakil is one of the organizers of a press conference calling for justice and punishment for the perpetrators of Tuesday's brutality. Goswe tells me that he was beaten in this neighborhood and then taken to Michelle camp and then later to Burma camp, where they were subjected to another round of beatings. He says they were left around 11:30 p.m. and they came back home in their boxer shorts.
We were beaten. You roll on the floor, you eat like a dog on the floor. They left us around 10:30 that way.
Okay.
And they took us from official town, but bringing us home, they left us at Timber Market with only a boxer short and no tops.
Wait, when you were going, were you wearing a shirt?
We were picked up from official town with no top.
You were not allowed to wear anything?
We are not allowed to wear dress. Okay. We were bare-chested like my gentleman, but with only boxer shorts. From here to Michelle camp to Burma camp. In bringing us back, we were left at Timber Market, the runabout, naked like that.
Now, some of the victims have been organizing a news conference in Ashaiman on Thursday. They are calling for the soldiers involved to be penalized, and they want government to compensate them for what they suffered. Emmanuel Kumade is a spokesperson for the group.
I told the resident that it's a one-month operation, and they have instructions from above to put the fear of God to avenge the murder of the fallen soldier. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, we, the people of Ashama, condemn the beastly acts of the Ghana Armed Forces, and we also call for the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo Dankwa, the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, to do same and render an unqualified apology to the good people of Ashama for the criminal acts of his troops. We also call on the media, civil societies, professional bodies like the Ghana Bar Association, religious bodies, among others, to join us in condemning the violence and the criminal acts of the soldiers. Consistently and persistently, the Ghana Armed Forces have taken Ashama as the training ground for unleashing violence on the innocent citizens.
Now we're joined on Zoom by the Amnesty International Country Director, Genevieve Pattinson, who joins us with some views. Now, Genevieve, I'm grateful that you could join us. You've been following what is happening in Ashaiman. How disappointed is Amnesty International at what happened?
First of all, thank you for having me on the program, and I'd like to extend my condolences to the victim, Moro Sharif, his family. Just watching them is really sad what happened, and it's very unfair. For Amnesty International Ghana, we're a human rights-based organization, and in fact, it's very disappointing that this kind of violence was meted out on, our people, and especially of Ashaiman constituency. And we've already issued a press release today stating that, it's unfair and it's unjust for the military high command to even deliver such a directive. Although the military high command, I'm sure they meant well and decided, okay, we are deploying our soldiers to go and investigate the crime. I believe they should have left it to the Ghana Police Service. That is why the Ghana Police are there. I think, they deployed their soldiers there, and unfortunately, so many innocent civilians were picked up and brutalized. I've heard so many things about flogging. I've been sent videos about, how they, barged into people's houses. Some people were just, not even knowing what was going on. Imagine someone barging into your house. So I think this is, it's disappointing. But I'm also glad because I was hearing today that the military high command has come out to apologize. And I think that's a step in the right direction. But we also have to look at how can we prevent something like this from happening again? Because we don't want, God forbid, this should happen again.
Okay.
And then this kind of effect. A lot of people are hurt. I hear people are in the hospital. I was very sad to hear a friend's national service personnel has fractures, and he's in the hospital, couldn't go to work. There's a lot of physical and psychological, issues when something like this happens to you. So it's a terrible incident. And
Okay.
I'm sad for Ghana. Yes.
Now, the president spoke to the nation on Wednesday, but did not touch on what happened in Ashaiman. How did that come across to you?
Extremely disappointing. I expected the president, being a father, this should have been the first thing he should have addressed before diving into the economy of the nation, because this was fresh right after Independence Day. And, and then you don't comment on it. I felt that was very not empathetic at all on his part. And it's a shame that he had to, not comment on this at all. I think the people of Ashaiman, I feel like even the victim that was murdered, they deserve better than that.
Okay.
So as for that, I'm not happy with that at all. Amnesty International Ghana, we are not happy about that.
Okay. The victims have come together and they want to seek legal redress. Any support or any advice the Amnesty International will throw to them?
So as for it, I think I want to commend the people of Ashaiman, because that is what Amnesty is about. You have to come together, one voice, you are stronger together. So this is a good step in the right direction. We are here, you approach us, we will send you to the right people. SHRAJ is there, Commission for Human Rights.
And administrative justice.
Thank you, and administrative justice. They are there to, help seek justice. So I think that's a step in the right direction. I also heard that Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament met today, and they'll be going out to visit Ashaiman and also the victims in the hospitals to, give a report. So I'm really hoping that within that report, they will definitely be talking about compensation for the victims, because it's very necessary at this point.
Jennifer Partington, I'm grateful to you for your time here. Now,
okay,
she is
thank
Director, Amnesty International Ghana. Now, the MP for Pont Katamanso, Joseph Akwete Tete, says not only residents in Ashaiman constituency were brutalized by the military. Speaking to Joy News, the MP said the soldiers went into his constituency and forced people there to eat cow dung.
Condemn the act of killing that young military officer. It's not right, and so it shouldn't happen again. At the same time, when we heard the incident, we were all confined ourselves to Ashaiman. But later I got the information that the military moved to Tulaku, which happened to be in my constituency. And so I decided to really find out what was actually happening. And the information I got was that my people or my constituents were subjected to barbaric activities. This includes, if you go to Tulaku, where the slaughterhouse is, in fact, the place is not a good place that I would say the place needs improvement. But these military officers compel some of the people working in Tulaku to go and drink the wastewater of the slaughterhouse. If you know that please very well, we are poor with some of these activities. Different accounts. Even they were also forced to take this excretion of the cattle. So that one too, in fact, affected them psychologically, a lot of them. Apart from this, some of the people too were taken away, and they didn't know the actual place that those people were being kept.
Robert Tete says some of his constituents are now living in fear, with some even fleeing the communities.
I call about 3 people.
Okay, we apologize for the sound there. Now, it's been a full day after the NDC's directive to its MPs to suspend campaigning and focus all attention to Parliament and parliamentary business. The party's strategy is to rally up its numbers to oppose bills the government wants to push through. With some few days to Easter, government wants to ensure that some parliament nominees are, given the permission or accepted to go into the various ministries. And also the controversial Electoral Commission CI, which has drawn a lot of condemnation from the opposition party. Now, with the directive coming in 3 weeks to Easter break, MPs agreed to call off their engagement to push the party's agenda. My colleague Kweku Asante joins us on Zoom with more on this. Kweku, well, what did the MPs turn up in their numbers today?
So, Grace, only yesterday, a number of them were very much upbeat about this directive. They were in full support of this. They were actually telling me yesterday in that interview I did with a number of them that this is something that they were going to do to save Ghana's democracy, as they've said. But today, less than 80 NDC MPs stand up on the floor. Indeed, at various parts of sitting today, you could count less than 30, 40. Some of them were going in and were coming out. And so I tried to find out what exactly was the concern and why were the NDC MPs not turning up. I first spoke to Roxy Nelson, his MP for South Dai. He said that it may be because some MPs were involved in committee sittings and other parliamentary business. I also spoke to Samuel Latamels, who was a little bit open about this idea that some MPs have real concerns that if they stayed in Parliament and allowed their competitors to campaign and get fertile grounds within their constituencies, it may be something difficult for them. So let's take a listen to these 2 MPs and why they thought that MPs did not show up on the floor today, despite this party's directive.
The people who are supposed to comply are those who are contesting MPs. They are on the field running amok and saying all sorts of things. So MPs are compelled to go back and either rebut and counter and set the record straight, all those things. So it is the contestants who are to comply. We are already here, we are complying. You may not see the members on the floor because there are a lot of committee hearings going on and some other engagements. So the members of parliament are available. You saw us heavily present in the chamber yesterday. So we couldn't have vanished into thin air today, but after protocols like this, a lot of committees get engaged to be able to discuss other. You also recall that Speaker has urged the committees who have referrals pending before them to expedite work on them. So those matters are what have engaged committees, as a result of which members have been taken out away from the chamber. But we are available.
People have made quite a lot of investment in this, in this seat. And you will sit down for somebody who hasn't spent a penny in the constituency, who has kept all his money. He comes in for maybe about 3 or 4 weeks, spends quite a lot, and then people fall for it. So some people, we all have our ideas on what to do. Some people, I'm sure, are in the constituencies campaigning. Some of them are from far away. It takes about a day to travel to their constituencies. So why should they sit here and then lose their seats whilst other people are trying to take it away from them?
Well, joining us on Zoom for a conversation on this is Nehemiah Yele Atiga, who is principal lead with Odikro. Nehemiah, I'm grateful that you could join us. Now, hearing this directive and some MPs also promising to really ensure that they follow through it, what does Odikro have to say on this directive?
Well, under normal circumstance, Odikro would be happy because then MPs would actually sit in Parliament and carry out the task or the mandate of oversight and also ensure that they participate in the conversations on the floor of Parliament or debates and also serve in committees. But then this directive also limits their ability to engage with their constituents, which then takes away parts of the bit where you are representing your people. If you are not engaging with the people you represent, you may not be able to do your work well. And one key element is political education or even education on policies and bills. And if you have been told not to go to your constituency, how are you able to do this? And so this is quite limiting. And I'm sure if they were doing what they were supposed to do in terms of engaging their constituents, they would not even be worried about someone coming in and engaging with your people or campaigning and taking your seat, because then the constituents already know what you're capable of. They know the efforts you put in and the things that you do in terms of representing them and carrying out your mandate.
Interesting. How do you think this then should have been so that they are able to perform their parliamentary duties, not because their party is asking them to, but because that's their responsibility?
So the thing is that the members of parliament typically would use excuses of being in their constituencies to rather do other things for their private gain. And I know, ironically, this directive may also not work because you may be in Accra and even be in parliament, but sit in your office, but not be in the chamber or even at a committee. So this is something that you may. It's a case of forcing a river to the forcing a horse to the river and then not being able to get the horse to drink the water. And I don't know how NDC in recent times have gone about these things where they do not engage the MPs to actually make sure that they are aligned and they agree with what these directives are, because clearly you are seeing some of them already not aligning or agreeing to what has been put out there, thinking about elections and giving all sorts of excuses. And this may not hold. It may not hold. I don't even think that the sanctions would prevent them because they are sitting MPs and they have certain mandates to undertake. So if you come in as a party and you want to limit the things that are required of them, then I'm sorry, maybe you're just running in the wrong direction.
Nehemiah, I'm grateful that you could join us here on the Joy News Prime. Now, still to come here on the Joy News Prime, for our special Ghana Month features today, we'll tell you the meaning behind the word abrochre or ablochi in Ewe. Stay with us. Welcome back from the break. Now, the Deputy Majority Leader in Parliament, Afenyo Maken, says President Akufo-Addo offered hope to Ghanaians in his message on the State of the Nation delivered in Parliament Wednesday. Now, debating the statement on the floor of the House, Afenyo Maken descended heavily on former President John Dramani Mahama for saying he will cancel ex gratia, saying the idea is populist. According to the Futu legislator, the NDC simply do not have any factual opposition to the message delivered by the president. But according to North Town MP Samuel Okujoto Ablakwa, it appears the president lives in a bubble of his own and his address did not reflect today's realities.
There were fatal omissions in the president's delivery yesterday, very fatal omissions. One of those fatal omissions is the fact that as Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, only the previous day, Tuesday, there was a major development. The good people of Ashaiman had come under attack, And let me add that as Commander-in-Chief, he should first of all have commiserated with the family and with the Ghana Armed Forces on the loss of the soldier. The president did not say a word. Mothers are worried. They are frightened that we don't have essential vaccines. We expected the president to issue specific instructions and to provide measurable outcomes. Tell us specifically, when will these vaccines be provided? All the president did was to beat around the bush and be talking about, yeah, we know it's an emergency, we know it requires urgency. That is not measurable. That is not specific. The fact of the matter is that the analysis we have done, 95.35% of the monies borrowed have gone into consumption. Consumption is that this claim at paragraph 4, page 17, we have integrated many processes within the digital environment. Mr. Speaker, is the president aware, and he ought to be aware, that his own appointee at the board of the National Cathedral has made nonsense of all these so-called integration, dual identity, different date of birth, different mothers, and has been able to beat the system. I refer to Reverend Victor Kusibuatin, who is also claiming to be Kwabena Edu Jemfi.
Now, MP for Ebuaka South, Samuel Atacha, says the minority seem to be creating their own fight and running with them. He insists that it is as a result of the COVID-19 and the Russia's invasion of Ukraine that has made the country go through this tumultuous times, insisting that if these happened under an NDC government, the country could have collapsed.
This hallowed chamber is supposed to be a chamber where the members are very educated. In fact, we reflect the thinking of our people. But there is a very worrying factor that I want to talk about, that we want to choose our own set of facts. We want to live in oblivion and live in denial. One of the things that saddens me is when we say that COVID-19 and the Russian-Ukraine war did not have a debilitating effect on the economy. It baffles me like thunder when people say these, world events, didn't affect the economies of the world. Honorable Speaker, I do not think we can be wiser than the experts. If you do a juster positioning of the situation, I wonder how NDC would have fared if they had the trouble of the COVID together with the Russian-Ukraine war. You couldn't handle as small a matter as doing so. Cholera. I'm telling you, these are the hard facts. Cholera. I'm sure the nation would have comatose if NDC were in power and then we experienced the COVID-19. You couldn't even put the lights on when we were enjoying the largesse of President Kufuor in terms of the...
But in response to this, MP for Yape Kuseu, John Jenapo, said President Kufuor cannot continue to blame COVID-19 for the economic mess we're in now and absolve himself of how we got here.
That yesterday, the president lost the opportunity to rally the nation. He was supposed to present the State of the Nation address and not the State of COVID address to the people of Ghana. What the president did yesterday was to blame COVID for everything and exonerate himself. That is what the president did yesterday. But unfortunately for the president, we would debate the State of the Nation and we'll set the record straight. And I want to set the record straight from following on from what the Deputy Majority Leader said. He says that President Mahama said he cannot reduce electricity. Deputy Majority Leader, you might want to check the archives. What you said is completely false. In June 2016, we reduced electricity tariffs by 50%. That is a fact. Because we can have our own sets of opinion.
Mr. Speaker, I quote from another source. President John Dramani Mahama has been commended for taking a bold and excellent initiative.
Our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante joins us with more details from this debate today. Kweku, the matters of the economy was also up on the table today. Tell us more.
So, Brace, yesterday when the president spoke, he said he was going to limit himself mainly to the economy because of the current times we faced. It was the Deputy Finance Minister, John Kuma, whose debate on the floor today focused and centered mainly on the economy. According to him, there have been claimed by the minority that Ghana's cedi is the worst performing on the continent. He said nothing could be further from the truth and listed just about 2 countries that he thought their currency was doing better than the cedi.
Mr. Speaker, let me put on record that the only time in the history of our country that Ghana has been sanctioned by the World Bank was in 2001 when the NDC, the previous NDC government, lied by data to the World Bank and were fined $40 million in 2001 by the NDC government, Mr. Speaker. So when they tell us we have cooked data to the World Bank, they should show us the sanctions that came along with it.
So, Kweku, how did the minority respond to this particular claim?
So the deputy ranking member on the finance committee, Isaac Adongo, who today spoke from the dispatch box, sought to punch holes within the statements and the debate that had been made by the majority side. According to him, President Akufo-Addo's claims that he has not borrowed recklessly is just not accurate because the president has brought the country into a ditch.
In the same period that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama ran this economy, in 2016, he invested 3.4% of the total GDP on infrastructure. So when we call John Mahama the king of infrastructure, that is the evidence that people know. Unlike you, who will come and say you have constructed kilometers of roads without mentioning those roads, John Mahama will mention a hospital just here at the bridge. We have to borrow to pay statutory funds. We have to borrow to pay for goods and services. We have to borrow to pay for infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, who manages an economy like this?
Let's talk about 1D1F now. Now, in 2017, the MPP government launched a policy to change the nature of Ghana's economy from one that is dependent on import and the export of raw materials to one that is dependent on adding value to the raw materials that we do have in the country. Now, with the help of Exim Bank and some financial institutions, government gave financial support to companies to make this policy a reality. But today, some of these companies have been forced to shut down, and they blame Exim Bank for reneging on the promises.
The incorporation was done in 2014, October, but the actual operation started in 2015 in terms of the land development and then the construction of a dam. This took us up to early 2018 when the government policy of 1D1F came into effect. And then we did a proposal which ended up in the Exim Bank for a new factory to be built, which has been completed as we speak.
Ebenezer Obin-Bafo is the Chief Executive Officer of Casa de Europa, a factory established under the government's One District, One Factory project. The company was established to process the fresh roots of the orange flesh sweet potato. These potatoes are turned into flour, which is used to make bread and other pastries.
Casa de Europa is not producing, and the reason is lack of cash. In October 2018, the funding stopped. At that time, almost 50% of the funds has been released by the Exim Bank of Ghana. But unfortunately, it stopped. It took the bank a whole year, up to October 2019, with the intervention of the board, including the board chairman, who paid a visit to the factory at that time in October 2019, and realizing where we were, we could finish it up. Then an order was made for the funds to be released. Thank God the funds were released immediately. I think 2 weeks after the board visit, we got the needed fund. By that time, there was a cost overrun. But we were bent on completing the factory. So we made Exim Bank aware that we will finish the factory on time. Thank God, by 2020, between March and May, the factory, as you see it today, has been completed.
Petersfield and Rail Limited is a manufacturing company under the One District, One Factory, established in 2018. It was established to produce high-quality natural fruit juice.
We started building this factory way back in 2014, and with the help of Exim Bank, we were able to complete it the year 2018, and also we needed some form of more capital to make our operations functional and also profitable. They even sent some experts to come and see our needs, then report back to Exim Bank. But nothing has been heard from them since, I think it was about 2 years ago. Today is 27th. They're expected to be paid by the end of the month. I don't know where I'm going to conjure the cash to pay them. Fuel bills have built up. Electricity came to disconnect just this afternoon. I had to go into my own resources to go and pay for them to reconnect the electricity. I don't know.
That is a sad one. But for documentary, One District, Some Factories airs on Monday on the Super Morning Show at 8:30 a.m. and also on the Joy News channel at 8:30 p.m. So do make a date now. Abroad in Ghana language is ablochi. In Akan, we say abrochre. In Ewe, it is ablochi. But do you know how the ablochi word came about? In this edition of Ghana Month series, Kojo Yankson returned from Fort Prinsenstein in Qatar and got some answers for us.
Slavery is a dark stain on Ghana's history. All along the country's coast, European colonizers built forts and castles as trading posts where they could buy slaves from local tribes and ship them off to the Caribbean islands, from where they would never return. Many of these stone edifices are still standing today, but like all historical buildings, the attraction is not the aging structure and the crumbling walls. It's the haunting stories they tell. On today's episode, we bring you perhaps the most haunting of all slave stories. Come with me to Keta in the Volta region, to the last Ghanaian fort on the way to Togo.
Welcome to Fort Prinsenstein.
Under the care of the Ghana Museums and Monuments Board, Fort Prinsenstein, or what is left of it, receives daily visitors from around the world. But there is something unique about the role this particular fort played in Ghana's sordid slavery story. Efo Akoli knows all about it.
This tool was taken from the chiefs. You know, when they came here, they sought permission from the chiefs. And when they are putting up the fort, they realized that they are converting the fort into a slave post. So our people stood against them. Tobi Degeni said no, they will not allow them to continue the building. So Tobi Degeni was killed that make our people move from here to where they are now, Agbosuma. And that's why they celebrate the Katasoma 2000 over there.
So the people of Agbosuma
yeah.
were originally here.
Exactly.
And the Danes killed the chief.
Yeah.
And sacked the people.
Exactly.
And kept the stool.
Yeah, they took the stool from the palace and it has been kept over here. So that the people of Agbosuma spotted the Danish governor along the coast of Hedana or Denu. So he was captured. And so they make him the idol over there in the back of the Denu market. So when you go to the back of the Denu market, you see some big idol. It contained the remains of the Danish governor at that time.
So when he was captured, he never made it back here?
No,
they killed him there?
They killed him because he was the one who killed their chief.
Oh. That's fascinating.
When they buy the slaves were taken across the Atlantic. And those slaves never come back. And our people start calling those from outside, they are from Abluchi, meaning Oblo, Ovachi, meaning they have deceived them by taking them there without coming back.
Oblo,
Ovachi.
And that's where the Abluchi came from.
Yeah.
You see, that actually makes more sense than the explanation that we, the Akans, have for the word Abluchi, where you hear people say Abronechi or whatever. This makes more sense. Oblo, Ovachi. So you deceived us, and they will never return.
Exactly. And those are the chains you can see over there. We used to chain their neck, their leg in those days. And also they realized that some of our forefathers, people from Togo, they have powers. They lean on the wall, they will just incastate some words and vanish. So they put mercury in between the walls.
And that stops them from doing that.
Exactly. That was the antidote at that time. So those who attempted got stuck. That's why the sea was destroying the fort. You can see human remains in the wall of the fort. And up to today, when you are in the fort, you can hear a screaming, loud screaming. When you come here, you will not see anything. You can hear a screaming. Yes, that's why we stay outside the fort. Then you will not see anything. So you have to call on the traditional authorities to come and do what they have been doing before we came here.
They chain you, they shackle you to a stranger, and you are standing in some 10 square inches of space, struggling for air, boiling under the heat, rubbing against the skins of other sweating men. The one thing that you need to sustain your life is water. And the only way to get water is when your slave masters pour it onto the ground. Then you fight your fellow 200 men to lick this off the ground, just so you can survive long enough and stay strong enough for them to illegally sell you to some white men who will make you work in their sugarcane fields for the rest of your life. You see, the reason why this thing is striking me so hard is because, look, even when you are broke to the point where you don't even have one cedi, one cowrie shell, you still own your life. You can never be so broke that you don't own your life. But somehow slave trade created a situation where even your life doesn't belong to you. And long after humanity decided that that act was too cruel to continue, here in Prinsenstein, it did not stop. still have mixed feelings about today's adventure. It's left me with a strange feeling, one I know I'll never forget. Until fairly recently, this walk I'm taking now would still have been within the walls of the fort. Half of that fort is now lost to the sea, just like half of the slaves that set sail from here. But the whole of its history remains forever, never to be forgotten, just as my memories of today will remain with me forever.
And on this account of, this chilling account of how Abrochire came about, we call it a wrap. There's more news on myjoyonline.com. My name is Samuel Kojo Brace.